All right, everyone. So, welcome to a Wealthy Trustee Masterclass hosted by 7 Ways to Wealth. I'm super excited that you guys are here. Tonight, we have an amazing masterclass for you guys. So, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our guest speaker. So, our guest speaker is Mr. Marley Watkins. So, he is the CEO of Simply Global. So, he's going to give you a little background of his brand, Simply Global. And what we're going to be talking about today, Mr. Marley is going to be educating us on why offshoring is so essential. So we already know that we deal with entities, and so he's going to be diving in and letting us know, about how we can incorporate that. So I'm super excited about this topic. I'm super excited about our guest speaker, Marley Watkins. So without further ado, we are going to start the masterclass. So Marley, thank you so much for being here and agreeing to educate the community on this vital information. So you have the floor.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Christina. Thank you for having me. Thank you, everybody, for joining on a Tuesday at 6 o'clock. It's greatly appreciated. We love doing these type of talks. We love doing educating. We think that the space we live in is um, not as often talked about. So I'll give you a brief background of who Simply Global. We're actually a tech company. We are a company that uses artificial intelligence to create complex corporate structures to optimize our clients' wealth. So what that really means is that we are through an app, our clients are able to use AI and get into a lot of corporate structures, all of them starting offshore. So the reason why Christina asked, I want to have this come on the show or talk about what we do. I really wanted to jump on and talk about specifically why our company is called Simply Global, why all of our clients will have an offshore parent company to start, a little background of what offshoring actually is. I think it gets a lot of connotation, it's used in a lot of books and movies and in that regard, and just kind of dispel the myths and talk about the big elephant in the room is who uses offshoring and what do they use it for. So to give a background, offshoring is really just separating one's assets from where they live physically. That's the best way to put it. So what offshore means is I may live in, I live in Brooklyn, New York. Um, we have offshore entities set up in the island of Nevis, which is next to St. Kitts. There are roughly, we call them the Lucky 13, but there's roughly between 13 and 18 favorable tax jurisdictions, which are referred to as offshore. The number one known is probably Cayman Islands. Most people on this phone call have heard of Cayman Islands and offshore. Bahamas, another well-known one. Bermuda, well-known offshore. The Switzerland is a well-known offshore. Luxembourg, Malta, Seychelles. Those are all offshore entities. So what makes offshoring so different and offshoring so essential, and the reason why our company exists, is currently there's about $4 trillion of personal wealth in the US held in offshore accounts. 4 trillion. So the uber wealthy all maximize offshore accounts. Offshore accounting is used by the uber wealthy because it has a very different set of rules than domestic accounts. For example, a domestic account has to report if a U.S. government comes to a domestic bank account and says, open up your books, your domestic account, the domestic bank account has to open their books for the U.S. government agency. That same agency goes to internationally, those books are not getting opened up. What happens offshore tends to stay offshore. Those familiar with the Vegas campaign, offshore has usually been used by again, the 0.001%. That's the group that usually focuses on having an offshore company. And what is an offshore company? What does it do? What does it provide? Privacy. is number one thing it provides, and security. If those are by far the biggest two, nobody really knows what goes in and out of an offshore company, and that's not by accident. The reason why I like to do these conversations and talk about this on a much open forum is the people who are using offshoring is a vast, vast, vast minority. I would say roughly of the $4 trillion that I mentioned held offshore is probably held in the same 3,000 families. So roughly 3,000 people have $4 trillion offshore. It's a very big number and it's a very beneficial number. The most common thing heard about offshore is zero corporate tax. That's true. They don't hide about it. You're called an exempt company. The tax that your company may or may not make is subject to their tax laws. Every company I named has a very zero tax bill. Everybody on the phone probably right now is using an offshore company. Apple is an offshore company. Apple's headquarters is not Cupertino. Their headquarters is Cork, Ireland. They've been in Cork, Ireland since 1983, I'm not mistaken. So they have been an Irish company for 40 years. Most people don't realize that, but Apple realized very early that there were massive benefits to being an Irish company. Apple is so powerful, they won two lawsuits in the EU about their taxes, and I'll get into taxes later. And Apple won both of them. The Irish government basically says you can't touch Apple. They're such a part of our economy. We don't want Apple to leave. So if you have an Apple product, you are using an offshore company. Apple is they operate offshore companies. Another big one is Google. Google is actually located in Bermuda. Nothing to do with, I guess, Palo Alto, what pops up on your screen when you pick Google. They're a Bermuda company. Nike is not based in Oregon. Nike is based in Bermuda and Bahamas and the Seychelles and Cayman Islands. You'll start to see a pattern here. The bigger companies that you know of are all located offshore. So how does this affect you? How does it look at your business? Why am I talking to you? Because I don't believe that offshoring is reserved for the top 0.001%. I don't think that's fair. I think that people should have the same access and the same rights and the same systematic setups that these big companies have. It's really a system of knowledge. Offshoring is not something that's prohibited. It's a lengthy process, but it's not prohibitive. And so to give you an example of what offshoring looks like, take two people, the exact same two people. One person makes $300,000. They have domestic entities set up. They may be the trustee. Let's get into this world. And they claim income on that 300,000, what they're doing. They are facing a tax bill of anywhere between 30 and 40% based on where they live. Nothing you can do about that. There's some ways that the show has talked to people minimizing that, and that's why I came on the show, because you're in the right vein. It's all about avoidance strategies. How do we mitigate risk, limit liabilities? That's what the show talks about consistently, why I'm so thrilled to be on it. You take that same example and you put somebody who has an offshore parent. Now that 300,000 belongs to the offshore parent. That offshore parent generally has a corporate tax rate of 0%. That 300,000 now is subject to the 0% corporate tax rate. That's why Apple is located in Ireland. That's why Google is located in Bermuda. These companies make an obscene amount of profit. $44 billion is a lot of profit. If they were to be subject to US tax law at 44 billion, that's a much different number. Then the Irish tax they pay of, I think, 0.17%. So I say all these numbers in the background and say all this information to say, why is it so important? It's dollars and cents. Why is it so important? It's the way the world is run through offshore companies. And I challenge anybody on this call to look at your consumer products, and I would guess if they're a Fortune 100 company, they're an offshore company. I would then challenge everybody on this call to ask your friends and family how many of them actually have offshore vehicles. And that answer would be much different. So the reality is the people that are making a ridiculous amount of money have got into this business a long time ago. To give a history of offshoring and why we do this and why it exists and why it's all legal, Offshoring started in 1399. If you ever heard of the Knights Templar, the Knights, they were leaving somewhere in Europe. They took all their money, they put it in the island of Malta so they didn't get taxed on it by the king. That kind of started what we know today as offshoring. So that started anybody with means and ends that did not want to get it confiscated. Back then, taxes were called confiscation. If you didn't want to get it confiscated, you put it somewhere else. Over time, that putting it somewhere else has gotten missed by most of the public. I would say, again, 0.001% does this. 99% operate just as it was. They think if they make it here, they have to claim it here. They think because it's physically resides here. If I earn in Florida, I have to pay taxes in Florida. That is not the case. You could earn in Florida, have a company located in Nevis, run banks through Belize, and pay somewhere in St. Lucia. I mean, it can get as complicated and as complex as you want it to do. What our company does, we do it through AI. So we take the complexity out of it. AI is making all those decisions on your behalf. It's telling you where to go and where to find. But the reason I wanted to keep coming back to why offshore is essential is important because it's a different way of doing things. It really is a different way of doing things. Looking at oneself as an offshore company means you're looking at yourself like Apple. You are saying my job is to keep as much money in my pocket as possible. That's what you're saying every day. And Apple is called a fiduciary duty. It's called shareholder duty. They have a directive that they have to do that. I think most individuals don't wake up every morning and say, my job is to keep as much money in my pocket as possible. Where a corporation, that is their lifeblood, that is in their charter documents. They all have a fiduciary duty to make as much money as possible. The number one way they figured out, taxes. Taxes is the elephant in the room. Taxes is the $1 billion, $1 trillion question. Taxes is why, if you're on this call, you're paying attention, why you should head should pop up all of a sudden. Taxes is what it comes down to. Taxes, taxes, taxes. Offshoring is the world's greatest tax advantage. The big difference is tax avoidance versus tax evasion. Tax evasion is not reporting to the government all monies owed earned. That means you got a W-2, you got a Schedule E, you got 1099s all come in. You say my W-2 is pretty high, my Schedule E renter income is making it higher. I'm going to leave those 1099s alone. I don't want to deal with them because they're going to make this even higher, which could be to an even higher bracket. With tax avoidance is different. Tax avoidance says W-2, 1099, everything, give it all to me. I want every dollar to know that I have it. What I'm going to do now is use entities and structures, in this case, an offshore vehicle to take that money. So I'll pause right there. What I'm going over is extremely complex corporate law and its background. I told Christina that I'm going to do my best to keep this as somewhat conversational and as somewhat fun, because this is technically the more non-fun conversation, structuring. But I think making money is fun. I think keeping money is fun. I think keeping most of your money is a lot of fun. So when those people, when everybody does this and they say, what's the benefit? It's that, it's taxes. It's allowing you to be able to stretch out your wealth in certain ways where you're able to mitigate taxes as you see fit. So when we get into the conversation of offshoring and domestic, offshoring versus LLC, a Delaware LLC would be the equivalent of having a really nice car. It does what you need to do. It has great benefits. It will get you to point A to point B. An offshore LLC will be the equivalent of having a really nice plane. You can go anywhere. You can do anything because now your funds are in a different perspective. They're viewed differently. They're held differently. Another huge reason about offshoring is bank stability. Believe it or not, U.S. banks are not as solvent, as liquid as everybody may think. So a lot of the reasons a lot of the wealth chooses offshoring is because those banks are fully liquid. They have nothing but cash in them. The last time I checked, we did numbers. Each like Cayman Island has $1.7 trillion in its banks as of today. Bermuda has $1.7 trillion in its banks. Um, Bahamas, they have $1.5 trillion in its banks. So these numbers are large, not large by accident. That's most of the world, the wealth of the world is parked in these banks. So they don't have a liquidity issue. What most people will have is properties. Properties is a great example of why offshore matters. Let's say you have a property in, let's say, Texas. I'll use Texas. You have Texas properties, you have a bunch of properties in Texas. Somebody gets in an issue and they wants to sue your Texas property. If it happens with a domestic LLC, domestic trust, they're gonna fight you in Texas and where it happens. Take that same example. I have a Texas property. However, that Texas property is owned by a Delaware LLC. However, that Delaware LLC is owned by an offshore vehicle. Let's pick any country, Nevis, St. Kitts, Bahamas. That who's actually owns the property. When the same suit happens, they got to go to overseas to get you now. We all could say we think the win ratio is going to open up an LLC, going to get after an LLC offshore, or going domestically and handling it right in Texas. The Texas one has a much harder chance to defend itself. The well-structured LLC, the well-structured property sitting offshore, they're fine. The number one way you avoid suit is to have no assets. Offshoring provides the people that are structured wealth to have no physical assets where they reside. Offshoring allows you to say, I only have the assets that are tied to me personally. My entities, my businesses, my other properties are all run by my international company. It's the reason why Apple does it. It's the reason why Google does it. And another real benefit to offshoring is the offshore bank accounts. That is probably, if I would say privacy is number one, offshore bank accounts number two most valuable reason. Offshore bank account, people have probably heard of the Swiss numbered accounts, very famous. They get passed down through generation, they're numbered, there's no name on them, nobody really knows what happened in those accounts. Most banks offshore have a system similar to that. Most banks offshore go to numbered accounts where there is no name on the record, so you don't know who owns the accounts. Most offshore accounts, if you bank with a business, is even more privacy. Then the business owns the account and nobody knows what name's on the account. And you can't find out who owns the business. Remember, I led with the privacy. So if I go right now and I take anybody on this call and I say, hey, you have an offshore vehicle, I want to find out what's going on in there. I'm going to call the island of, let's use Nevis, and ask them. They're going to say no. They're going to say, do you have record that the person that you're asking for is convicted beyond a reasonable doubt of domestic or international terrorism? If they say yes, then they have to open an account. That is a rule. They have to say if you're doing. Otherwise, the answer is no. You're not getting to those accounts. You're not opening them up. You're not figuring out what happened. That's the power of offshore. It really comes down to, do I want to get $1 and keep 97 cents? Or do I want to get $1 and keep 68 cents? The people who use offshore vehicles tend to keep the 97 cents. The people who don't use offshore vehicles tend to get to 67 cents. And that's just across the board. It doesn't matter race, creed, nationality, color, age. If you're set up correctly with offshoring and you're set up correctly where you have a structure that supports it, you're on the other side. So why is offshoring important? It changes the way you live. It protects you in ways that no other entity that I know about can do it. It allows you to really separate yourself from your funds and your assets. This is especially important, you all who are in the trust and the trustee wealth mentality. You're already there. I would say offshoring works in conjunction. Many offshore vehicles involve trust in the same, they go hand in hand. Many offshore vehicles are run by trust. So they trust and offshore trust and structuring work very closely together. So the better structured you are, the better chance you have of seeing your whole dollar. If you're structured correctly, the better chance you are of you'll probably have some trust built into your work. I think in the world we live in, again, our company, most of these companies that we're having right now is all done through an app. Most of it's done through AI. My job is to direct the company, but the bedrock and the foundation of what we came from was the expertise that our team brought into it. So when you're talking to the Simply Global app, it will be assuming certain logic patterns, assuming certain things that are best practices. One of those assumptions is everybody has an offshore vehicle. That's a safe assumption. It's just a safe assumption that everybody has one because they make sense. A safe assumption is that everybody has a domestic entity that the offshore vehicle runs through. What you don't want to start doing, what you won't see, is people swiping their offshore credit card in the States. That ruins the whole plan. What you'll see them do is have an offshore vehicle, have that wire money to a domestic bank account. That domestic bank account now has the money, that wires it to another LLC, and then that LLC swipes. That's 99% of the time how it's run. You don't want what's called pierce the veil. You don't want to have the offshore vehicle subject to suit. You don't want to swipe it at a Bergdorf or Macy's and all of a sudden it goes back and bites you. You just don't. That card is made, deposits come in, and it gets wires. With the international, COVID did a lot to the world. What it did to offshoring was, believe it or not, make it more accessible. I think these offshore countries had a huge travel issue. People couldn't get there. So they started doing a lot more involved with digital. So you can open up accounts without even being physically present. That is very new. Another big reason about offshoring is, if you're on this call, this will be in perpetuity. It was something called the Panama Papers. They don't know what that was about 2016, 8 years ago, there was a big leak on offshore information. Every newspaper, articles, movies been written about it. What that did was create offshore entities to get much smarter. So they didn't stop it all. All they did was become much more leaner, much quieter, and much more efficient. So right now is the best time to open up offshore. Another question that comes up a lot is, what's the barrier to entry? Whereas LLCs do not have much of a barrier. Anybody can open an LLC almost anywhere. Offshoring does not have that same flexibility. You have to have a passport of some regard. You have to have a license of some regard, a bank statement of some regard, and you can't be convicted of embezzlement or crimes that do with money. If you are, you have to let people know, just because that's an offshore hurdle, because anti-money laundering and know your customer rule. So anti-money laundering, AML, is the biggest users, and be very clear, you have to admit what is true. Some illicit activity does flow through offshore accounts. You can't avoid it. I mean, if you say offshore, that's probably people will think. I would say that's a small percentage of it. The massive percentage of offshore is big businesses. To put it in perspective, you ever heard of Goldman Sachs? Goldman Sachs has roughly 987 offshore companies. If you ever heard of JP Morgan, JP Morgan has roughly 642 offshore companies. If you ever heard of Morgan Stanley, they have 552. The numbers go on and on and on. So these are hundreds of offshore companies they have. And I just tell people, one is pretty good. Two is great. 987, you know what you're doing. 500, that's a lot, but they're moving pure profit. They're moving pure money. The reason why this is a topic that doesn't get, the worst thing I hear when I do these talks is, I can't afford it. I'm like, well, here's the answer. If you pay more than $30,000 in taxes, then you can afford it. It's that simple. It's paying one or paying the other. I think what happens is, if you start to make money, you think a lot of people think this is reserved for the Jeff Bezos of the world. Yes, they do it. Absolutely. Phil Knight, Jeff Bezos, Jay-Z, Beyonce. I think Jay-Z had 67 LLCs, and I think I was talking to his business manager, like 7 or 8 offshore. So yes, it's done. Absolutely. I don't think that is I don't I still believe what I said. I don't think it's just reserved for them. I think once you have the knowledge and assets, many people in our network, many people that I work with work very, very, very hard for their money. I think they want to keep 30%, 35% just as much as Nike does, just as much as Goldman Sachs does, just as much as Amazon does. It's just that they may not have the vehicles and the entities set up to do so. To put in perspective, who usually does this is usually a wealth management team, usually a tax strategist, usually a tax attorney, and a corporate attorney. Those are the four who kind of sit and go over and live in this world. What Simply Global has done is taken those four roles and, again, put them through an application. Artificial intelligence is able to understand and see where we have to go, and we're able to build a logic pattern that will put all of our clients in those same structures. So normally I don't go this long without asking for a break. So I'm going to say now is just take a quick pause. Say any questions. This is a lot of material that we threw out real quick. So I hope you don't mind, Christina, change up a little bit, but because the
Yeah,
topic is so dense,
absolutely. I
I'm
know,
going
I
to just
know.
pause here. A little that said in, yeah, it's real. Offshoring is real, and it's really beneficial, and it's really awesome, actually. So any questions, any chats, I'm open the floor up.
Absolutely. Yes. Let's open up the floor. Any questions so far for Marley and any of the information that he has gone over? Like, this is valuable information, you guys, as far as, offshoring. So, and getting different entities outside of the United States. All right. So we got a question here. It only says E. So I'm going to call you E. Hi, E.
Hi, it's Esther.
Oh, hi, Esther. How are you, Queen?
I'm great. I had the one question. He went kind of fast. What were the tax attorneys you said that you should have?
No, I would say not that you should have. I've said normally in this role, there is a tax attorney, a tax strategist,
Oh,
a
strategist.
corporate attorney, and a corporate service provider are the four that kind of get into this world. So I don't
Oh,
say you have to have them. I would say that's usually who talks offshoring the most.
oh, okay. I understand. Thank you.
Welcome.
Uh, Hello, Marley. My name is Quinzea.
Pleasure.
I appreciate the information you provided thus far. So I had a question about because you said like the simply global system, it makes like an assumption. So
Mhm.
so does it so it doesn't really like help with setting up the entities. We already need to have the entities set up, and it helps with just more with the strategizing for it. Or
No, it builds them. It builds them
okay,
as it goes through. It's basically a two-part process. It does an interview, an AI interview that takes all your information. And as it's interviewing, it's building based on our logic pattern. So it's assuming you're coming in with one or two. By the time you leave, you probably have 9 or 10. That's just the nature of how we structure.
okay, all right, sounds good.
All right.
I have one question, Christina, if it's okay.
Yeah. Well, hold on one second, Tina. I
Sure.
have Miss Alania Bays. She has her hand up. I'm gonna
Oh,
take her,
sure.
then I'll take you, Tina. Thank you.
No
Miss
problem.
Bays.
Hello, everybody. How you doing? I
Uh,
came in late. I just saw the text, and I so if he can go over maybe what he first went over when he first came on, I would appreciate it. Not step by step, just generalize it if you can.
Like a quick little summary.
Yeah, quick
mhm.
summary because I have a grantor's trust in Costa Rica. And so I'm curious as to how would that help, with that, what you're speaking about, offshoring. I'm not
Excellent.
sure what offshoring is.
Well, a quick rundown. Grantor's Trust in Costa Rica, I love it. Offshoring is exactly what you're talking about. Offshoring really is just separating where you live to where you run businesses and picking the right jurisdiction to run that business out of. No more, no less. And it's just not saying Costa Rica is a great example. You pick a different jurisdiction that you live in, that jurisdiction could run your businesses, could be located domestically. In the beginning, I gave examples of companies that are thought to be domestic, US companies that are actually offshore. Apple's the biggest one, located in Ireland. I went over Google's Bahamas, Nike is Bermuda, and just different examples of these large corporations and them using these systems to extreme efficiency.
Right.
Their extreme efficiency is to make sure they have very little liability to any action, make sure they maximize their profit in almost every possible way, and to create and preserve generational wealth because this offshoring and it's constantly being not touched by any US entity. There's no probate tax, no inheritance tax, no estate tax in these jurisdictions.
So can we do our trust there or do a trust in there? Oh,
Yeah.
and operate it here in the
What
United States?
what we tend to do is use trust, and I was talking to Christine about this in great detail. Is trust are great work withers. They work with our structures. So they become
Okay.
managers. They become members. You never want the trust to have any chance of getting sued. You always want to
Right.
have a veil between, or two veils, or three veils, or four veils between
Okay.
depending. Yeah, we like veils, a lot of veils. So at the end of the day, they got to
Yeah.
keep pulling back, and they come back, there's nothing
Right.
there. Offshoring
Right.
is by far the most valuable way to do it. So starting Grantos Trust Costa Rica is a great start. And we would just build with that. We would take that and have that part of multiple, and other jurisdictions that I was talking to, earlier have different valuable rules. So Nevis has different rules than Bahamas. Very close, but each one has their own differences. Almost like picking your favorite flavor.
Right.
You know,
Right.
it depends on what you like. For us,
Yeah.
we value privacy, essentially.
Right.
And
Because
that's our
I tried to use my entity for the trust, but the IRS wouldn't allow it, so I had to end up using the social. So how do you go about doing that? I mean, as far as using the entity, the grantor's trust to well, not manipulate, but
No, it's just we say it's really a question of having more than one. It's you
yeah.
have to have a network. We say for that case, it would be the grantor's trust that's going to another entity that's going somewhere else, and then you're using that. And then if you start to use a social, you do a third party designation, and that third party designation saying that you could use my number, but I'm not part of that. I'm not part of the trust. That's what
I got
that's in that situation.
Gotcha. I see. Okay. Yeah.
And I guess it's good to back time to get my background. So before I founded Simply Global, I worked at a law school. I got recruited by a company called CT Corporation. CT Corporation is the world's largest provider of doing this. They're the world's largest structurer. They handle 98% of the Fortune 500, 90% of the Fortune 100. My job when I was there was a major account manager, so I handled their biggest clients: Goldman, KKR, JP Morgan, Marriott, Walmart, et cetera, et cetera. I took that logic and built Simply Structure, which then became Simply Global when we decided to take all that logic and put it online as an AI brain.
That's
So
great.
the AI brain really is just a collection of the biggest companies in the world's logic. We're just basically opening the door to everybody else. But instead of having the tax attorney, tax strategist, all of those, our AI brain gets you pretty close to where, and then you just verify it with that group versus paying them to set it up.
Right.
And that's a significant savings.
Wow, that's great. You got some good mind on you. It's great.
I tell everybody, and then Christina's heard the story, she heard me speak. The idea was, and then we'll get to the next question. It was really a blessing that somebody pushed on us. I didn't think that structuring could be done via, it was just timing of AI. The timing of artificial intelligence being able to handle this amount of information and get it back out. So now I could say, I could take anybody on this call, when the app is live, put you through it. You'll have a global trust. You'll have everything that I'm talking about. It will just do it from a simple interview. And
Can I
that's
get
the way
your information? Can I?
yeah,
I
we're
didn't
gonna
get your
have
information.
it in the chat. We'll have the website.
Okay.
Go to there and
Cool.
yeah, it's
Cool.
So,
Thank you very much.
my pleasure. Any other hands?
Yes. Next we're gonna take Tina, and then we do have some questions in the chat, and then we also have questions on YouTube.
Okay.
Thank you, Christina. So,
You're
Michael, first of all, thank you for your presentation. I really appreciate it. I guess I'm just trying to understand, how do you avoid the perception of money laundering in setting up offshore accounts? Because that's the biggest thing that, that concerns me if it's something that I were looking to do. So just how do we, not have that be the case in terms of proper reporting of these accounts?
That's a great, great, great question.
That's what I was
And-
thinking.
No, and be honest with you, so I'll tell a quick story. I was talking to somebody, and when I used to have, when I started, we had a lot of athletes, and my biggest fear was that very question. How do you go offshore and not money laundering? The number one answer, believe it or not, is where you pick. Cayman Islands is so notorious with that. Is the reason we didn't pick Cayman Islands. There's nothing wrong with Cayman. Cayman is a beautiful island, perfect system. It's just used so much and so many that comes up a lot. If you say Isle of Man, people don't think nearly say the same. You say Jersey or Malta or Seychelles, any of those, you get away with it. It's the name of the jurisdiction, you might get some pushback. That's the first thing. So really just optics, not saying it's correct whatsoever. I'm saying the Cayman has a great system, robust anti-money laundering laws in place, but the name of it alone, from movies, from pictures, the firm had Cayman Islands in it. Like, so many things have used Cayman over time. It just got the name, it got the name. Now, the second reason, I would say the biggest reason how to protect yourself from that optics of it is you're not setting up a sole offshore company. You're setting up a multinational corporation setup. You're forming the parent company is just offshore. You have domestic entities that really run your business. So it's not like you're taking all your money and putting it in a lockbox and sticking it offshore. That's not what we're talking about. We're saying you're taking your idea, your wealth, your machine, making the parent of that offshore. The machine still runs as it's running. You just have a far more favorable tax situation because the parent gets taxed where it is. You're saying I can get taxed in New York or I get taxed in Seychelles. I'm going to pick Seychelles because their tax rate is 0 versus New York's 53%. Nothing about that is money laundering. It's the same dollars and cents. I'm just structured better than you are. Goldman Sachs is, I get 987. They're just structured better than anybody else. JP Morgan, the reason we're the wealthiest bank in the world, they have 642 of these. They're just structured better. Nothing about AML, money laundering because of money's illicit. That's why I highlight the tax evasion part early. And we have strict, you just see our checklist for AML. We do a very thorough anti-money laundering checklist for that very question. But that answer your question is kind of a long answer, but it's a two-part answer.
No, I totally get it. I mean, I understand your point about the money not being illicit, right? Because I think that's the biggest thing that kind of leads to the money laundering aspect. I was looking at it as, and I think kind of what you referenced, the tax evasion, putting it in an offshore account to avoid the tax liabilities, right? And so in my mind, and forgive my cop brain for always working at 10. So as you start talking, that's immediately what I'm going to. I'm like, okay, is this something that I personally can do? Nothing against anyone else. I was just trying to, wrap around
it's
that.
100% legal. It's 100% factual. It's more so a question of just knowledge how to do it.
Yeah.
I think that the bigger issue, which we won't get into because it might sidetrack it, is moving funds when suit happens. Now it's a question. That's a different conversation.
That shows intent.
That's fraudulent conveyance.
Yeah.
That's why I would say I wouldn't advise somebody, let's say you and your partner are splitting, to go open an offshore company tomorrow and dump everything there. That's a bad idea. That's more so when a red flags come, and that's done, believe it or not, a lot.
I believe it.
Where people will say, I'm about to split my real estate partner. I don't want to come after me. I'm taking everything. I'm going to run and put it somewhere. No, that's fraudulent conveyance. That our company won't touch that. Our AI logic brain won't even pass it by. That's a question we'll ask you. Are you in suit? If the answer is yes, we stop. We go, okay, you can't, nothing we can do. If the answer is no, we keep going. You know, good thing about computers
Yeah.
is no emotion. It just follows the rules. So that's how we answer that.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you, Marley. I really appreciate that.
No, my pleasure.
Perfect. Marley is so awesome. Okay, Marley, we have
Oh,
a few
no.
more questions. So Kimber in the chat says, I have a C Corp that was built with a solo 401k. Can I create an offshore account for my company? If so, would it be more beneficial to create an account directly offshore?
Robes, good old fashioned robes conversion. That if you don't know a robe, good job for you who did that, Kimberly. Good job. So robes is it sounds like you did a robes rollover business startup. It's where
Yes.
you did? Yeah, beautiful. I love those. You basically take your 401k and you can create your own C corp and self-fund your own business tax free. I
Correct.
love robes. We used to do them. That probably phase two of our build out. You're ahead of the curve, Kimberly. We haven't built it out, and that's probably we're going to start offering that probably next year, our next iteration, because they are valuable people who do have long-standing pensions, 401ks. You can get it tax free. But to answer your question, that C corp, all you would do there is nothing would change there. You already fulfilled all your requirements for the robes. The C corp, what only difference would happen is that shareholder, instead it would move from being you to being the international parent. So you
Okay.
would basically just give those shares away. And then now that C Corp basically breaks even every year. It doesn't lose, it breaks flat. The delta that it makes,
Mm-hmm.
that goes offshore. And that gets taxed at the offshore rate, which again is zero. And I'll look at the screen. Can I do a quick shout out to our man Corey, who I saw jump on the call? So I saw the face. I was like, Corey. Corey he actually ping ideas off him. So Corey is I'm glad to see him on the call. So quick shout out. Good to see you, Corey.
Yes, Corey's amazing, and Mr. Walker will be coming on and doing a masterclass for us as well. So
See that one. That guy he's a genius.
right. So we have phenomenal educators coming to you guys, providing, the best information and these wonderful master classes. So get in the community. So can we move on to the next question, Marley? We're good?
Yeah, go ahead, please. Go ahead. Move
Okay,
on.
perfect. So Marcy says, where do you recommend researching and understanding regulatory requirements?
So I would say that's two ways. One, go to Simply Global, sign up to the wait list, and we'll send some information out to you about the tax treaties and how that works. Two, it's all public information. The reason why we're able to quote these numbers, believe it or not, none of this is private. The names of who does it is private, but the information is public. Meaning, if you want to find a tax treaty, regulatory information, any treaties about this, simply search, country, offshore, benefits, cons. That's the easiest way to explain the regulatory. What I would say is on our company, our chief legal officer is phenomenal. He's a beast. He spent a lot of time on getting all this regulatory stuff and all these disclaimers. So when you go through us, you're really just clicking and through and highlighting the key points. But the biggest issue is tax treaties. And tax treaties basically means what does a country that you're going to operate in, how do they deal with America? America has various tax treaties with various countries, and those treaties tell what could happen. Any offshore company I listen to you has a tax treaty with America. That treaty usually reads as follows. You will disclose information at the best of your ability when asked by the American government, period. That's usually how it goes. 58 pages of will disclose to the best of our information. There's no illusions that privacy is important to these people. So they're not going to give up their whole base. So regulatory wise, I say if you want to find out the regulatory information on how this works, again, sign up with us. We give educational information all the time. But I'm always clear to say this is all public information. Nothing here is proprietary because it really is just knowing the system. So you could find a tax treaty between US and Nevis in 2 seconds. And it's 58 pages, I'll tell you that right now. But I think it sounds you want to know the tax treaties because that's really where this falls. Because the regulatory question would be, can I do this? And the answer is a resounding yes. It's operating agreements and LLCs are built to structure like this. So can an international company be a manager of LLC? Absolutely. Can an international company be a member of LLC? Absolutely. Can an international company run a trust? Absolutely. Can a trust run? Absolutely. Those are all yeses. I think it sounds like the bigger question is the regulatory, the tax treaties. And that goes by, so certain countries we won't operate with, like the country of Georgia, or certain countries that may not have the stablest regime. Our AI we won't process those points. We will stick with the countries that we know, we reviewed the treaty, we know it's up to date, we know it's not an issue. We're not going to get involved in any of we don't need to. There's enough good countries that operate offshore that just fine.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. Next question. So we have Leon, he put, how can I get started as a beginner? The first step.
Go to Simply Global 100, go join the wait list. We are pulling our first, we call them the 00 status members, our first 9 members. We're letting the people know that we're doing different builds out. Our first year, we're keeping it to 100 people. We want to keep it extremely but we also want to build the right community. So we're picking and choosing who's coming in. I told Christina this when we spoke to Corey when I speak. We want the right 100 because we want that 100 to control. So it's going to be made up of a lot of us doing what we do. We joke the cool kids. Our CMO has done a phenomenal job of somehow making structure and cool. So that's what we stay. But that's how you have to get on the wait list. We'll be contacting people this month. We're looking for the right fit, and then the AI will be building out technology July 1, and this thing will be up and running fall, and I could show the mock-ups if, when people contact, and Corey has seen more than people seen. So yeah, it's that's how you do it best, to sign up the wait list, and then we'll go from there.
Awesome, awesome. So the links are in the chat, you guys, okay? So Marley's link is in the chat. Go to both of those links. And then he also provided an example of what the structure, a successful asset flow chart looks like. So let's move on to the next question. Thank you so much, Marley. So William says, what is our protection if we become a part of, this organization? What is our investment to take place, the next step?
So so basically when you sign up, there's 3 different tiers of pricing based on we call it start your empire, build your empire, or run your empire. And so it basically depends on where you are in your paradigm of building what you're trying to build. That's the fee structure. After we work, we're transactional. You pay to set up. You paid a one-time fee, then you're on the app, you're running it. After that, we do a subscription, which is 10% of what you paid the first year, the next year, and that's it. We don't do an asset under management. We don't do that. We do a one-shot. AI builds it. You have your entities, it renews it for you, and you just keep going. We try to make things as clean, quick, and efficient as we can. We think that's the world we like to live in. Technology allows us to do that nowadays. But yeah, the best thing I can say is waitlist, get on there, Simply Go 100. Sign up. When we contact you, reach back, and then we have a real conversation where you sit. Most people fall between a build your empire and run your empire. And just knowing that, you have talked to a human once, twice, and after that, you're talking to a machine, and a machine is very, very, very smart. I was chuckling one day. I've done this for almost 15 years. The machine has already caught me and already says things that I'm like, wow, well, that's good. So AI has learned very quickly, and we're excited about it. We spent a lot of time and effort building this thing out.
Perfect. Love it. Okay, so guys, I want you to know that the replay is going to be available on YouTube. So I am going to drop our YouTube link in the chat. So now I'm going to go to YouTube because we do have a few questions on YouTube. So
Sorry, y'all, my phone had died.
Oh, okay. So let's see. So on YouTube, the first question is, how can we get in on offshoring?
The best way is honestly Simply Global 100, join the wait list. I mean that because offshoring is a process. It takes weeks, months sometimes because of the KYC and the anti-money laundering obligation. What we're able to do is because we have a certain relationship, we've done it long enough. We have ability to fast track. some, but I would say honestly, simply Global 100, get to the wait list, get the information onto this because that's the fastest, best way to get off. Because we'll not only offshore with a domestic company underneath it that's all being run through an app and AI. I have to finish what it does. So it's not just offshore. Offshore is top of the iceberg. It gives you all the protections. Having a logic brain and having your everything situated and entities built and allowing you to swipe with a domestic LLC card, but knowing that its transaction is being protected by an offshore parent is really what we provide. And that's, I think that's the real essence of going offshore is really just parking your money and your intellectual property there and then living here totally normal. I think that's really offshoring. I think that's the real way to do it. That's what we do. We let you park what you need, but still run as you want to run.
Awesome. Thank you. So the next question is, how do I know how many businesses or LLCs I should be using for my corporate structure?
That is a phenomenal question. And whoever asked that, awesome. And the answer is our app will tell you. I think, no, but I mean that AI will tell you. I think we're building it. I would say it falls between the starter would be this. If you come on and you're just starting out, I got an idea. I got one thing. I just speaking, one property, or probably 5 or 6. One parent, a holding, a operating, a realty, and a named LLC. When you start getting bigger than that, it's going to be between 9 and 12 and 15 because each idea, because for example, I spoke about this and the team heard Christina, excuse my repetition, but a Delaware two-step, where most properties are always owned. So the property 123 Main Street LLC, that's domestic in Arizona. Then you have 123 Main Street DE LLC that owns 123 Main Street LLC, that's in Delaware. And then you have 1233 Main Street DE Realty owned in Delaware, but that's owned by your parent company, 123 Main Street International, based in Nevis. That's a little different. So that's what we do automatically. So to give you an answer, that's 4 entities right there. If realty, because realty is so litigious, that's the word, like litigious. So many lawsuits happen. A cut and fall could take your whole house away. We try to eliminate that. If somebody slips and falls at your place, that house is a shell. Nothing's there. There's no assets there. So good luck. We try to keep our people in that world. We're not going to slip and fall and then sue me and take everything. And the layers are because of that. So to answer your question, a short answer, our AI will tell you how many. And my answer from my experience, usually starting out 5, running it between 9 and 15. If you got a lot going on, a lot of property, a lot of transactions, a lot of art, a lot of things happen, at 15 or more. And that's just kind of an easy breakdown.
Wow, 15, that's intimidating. I love it though. Like it's
An app runs
also
it, so.
abundant. That's awesome. All right, so the Most High's House of Prayer on YouTube asks, hello, how to get started?
I would say the best thing, again, it sounds repeat, but Simply Global, only because we have the wait list helps us filter everybody out, get the right information, make sure the right people talk to you. Because you want to be somebody who talk to you is really where you get started. I will say we're starting now. We are starting this. We really want to have these things done because we want people. We don't like the word guarantee, but we can strongly suggest that if you're done building by September, October, all your stuff will be in, you'll capture all 2024. You start getting to the end of the year, it gets busy. Holidays, breaks, people take vacations. The Delaware corps come in. Those big companies I named, they all flood the market what we're trying to do. So we want to get all our people. So we're doing it now. Now is the time we're doing it. So when you're set up, by September, you're well set up. So when the holidays come, that holiday shopping, guess what happened? That's a charge on nice international LLC. You're welcome. It's a beautiful write-up, the most beautiful one, because it's a nice loss on a company that we created.
I love it. I love it. So on YouTube, Mr. Freedom says, what's the name of his company?
Simply Global Inc. And the website is Simply Global 100. And again, it's an AI-powered wealth optimization company focusing on corporate structure. So at the end of the day, AI is running the show. Our job is to put more dollars in your pocket. How do we do that? By structure. that's the nitty-gritty of it.
That's awesome. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So so for those of you guys who are going to be watching the replay or who are watching on YouTube, the link is in the chat and it's also going to be in the description box below. So let's see, do we have any other questions? Any other questions for
I just want to
Marley?
say, thank you all. This
Go
has been a
for it.
great group. This is
Yeah.
awesome. Great questions, good feedback. I like everybody's pitches, all cool looking. So, the good group. Thank you all for having me. It was really enjoyable, and the questions were all excellent. And I kept somebody did robes. Robes is pretty cool. Robes is a good thing. So that robes, you got a Costa Rica guarantor trust. I mean, this is cool stuff that I don't need a chance to talk to too much. You can tell I geek out about this. This is what I love talking about. So this is thank you all from me to you all. Thank you all for having me because it's quite
Thank you.
enjoyable.
Excuse me, I'm out. One last question. In regards to, like, to the model, how often is it trained? Like, what is kind of the team that kind of
Yeah.
comprises, like, the people that kind of train the model and keep it up to date on, you know, the latest subjects and stuff like that?
Great question. So our CTO, it runs our entire tech team. Our provider, Amelia, is a 24-year-old AI company. Believe it or not, they've been in AI since inception. Those two have a team of 6 engineers that work together, that build everything, that build the brain daily. There's updates happen daily in the tech world. So if anything happens, we know it daily. Plus, on top of that team, our chief legal officer is constantly updating with any tax treaty, any revisions, any new AI notes. It pulls daily. And then the brain itself has a job to get itself smarter. So it's looking through other large, I'll be very, not too technical, but it's polling other large language models. So what we've done is build a box. Everybody heard of ChatGPT or Copilot. Those are large language models. Those are big, huge, answer every question you could think of. We want to answer this many questions. So what it does is, to answer your question, is as it's learning, if it can't get the answer here, after it's supervised learning, it will start going to one of those large language models, and just picking more answers. So there's a human training aspect, a tech training aspect. Then, as crazy as it sounds, is AI trains itself. It has gotten that good, as it will start to pick and choose and build its own self for later. So if a treaty comes out on 1201, by 1202, it kind of know it exists. And it's loading it into its system and learning what just happened by 1205. It's in the brain now.
Okay, awesome.
That is phenomenal. Yeah, so you guys, I put the link to the replay in the chat for you guys. I'm also going to put the link to the channel in the chat. So please subscribe to the channel, 7 Ways to Wealth, the number 7. And you guys will be able to review this information. Like people in the chat on YouTube, they are putting like the brain emoji, they're putting the gems. So putting fire in the chat. So I'm so glad to hear that. So yeah, so is there any other last questions? If not, then we are going to wrap it up, but we will be bringing you guys master classes like every 2 weeks. As of right now, every other week. And we have industry experts like Marley who are going to come in and educate you guys on, the essentials in order to help you guys with your success. Okay.
And the last thing I'll say to cut you off is, if you get a chance, check out Mr. Walker when he's here. He believe me, I call him for stuff about things like that. So it's a seamless plug for the brother down there, because you get a chance, log into him, because he's a mind blower, and he is absolutely a wealth of information. So that's my plug at the end of it. And Simply Global 100. Go to the website, sign up to the wait list. We're pulling people now. We are absolutely looking for our 00 status, our first 9 that get some cool box, cool swag. They got like some titanium card. Hook it up, the first 9 members, and then the top 100 will everybody's numbered. So we have a community. That's the whole point. So you'll know who the numbers are and transact business that way. And we're excited about the launch. So thank you all for the time.
Yes, congratulations on the launch. We are super excited for you, Marley.
How
And
do you get in touch with them, Christina?
So
Yeah.
you should see it on the chat, but I'm also going to put it I'm also going to put it on not YouTube, excuse me. I'm also going to put it on YouTube, but I'm going to also put it in our Facebook community as well, okay? But
Okay,
it's
because
in
I
the
didn't,
chat.
I don't, I didn't get the email. I get the you send
The
it through
text
text.
message.
Yeah, so I don't get it.
Oh yeah. No, yeah, I didn't send the email for this one. I only sent out a text. So, so it's simply global100.com. So you guys can find it in our Facebook community and on YouTube. And then if you need the link, then go ahead and send us a text and we'll respond with the link as well, okay? So these are these are our educators, right? And so they are resources for you guys. So tap in. We're only bringing you guys the most professional, well-equipped individuals in the industry. Like Marley said, next up is Mr. Corey Walker, right? And I got him on speed dial. Marley has him on speed dial. And so now he's going to be available for you guys, so that he can help facilitate with your funding needs, especially with the trust, okay? So I will be introducing you to him shortly. With that being said, is there any other questions? I don't think so. Any
Thank
other
you, Christina.
questions? Yes,
Thank
thank
you,
you. Thank you.
Christina.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Christina. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And so we're actually starting a series. So Marley, he's a wealth of information. He is an attorney. He's been doing this for years and years, eons and eons and eons. So he's going to come back and educate us on different parts when it comes to, offshoring, LLCs, corporate structure, all of those things, okay? Everything that we need to know in order for us to be set up properly, especially in the direction that the world is going, okay? So,
Yeah.
and a lot of us, we are international, so we should be tapped into these things. Not everything is in your backyard or for you to even be dependent on the United States, okay? We got to get out of our comfort zone and we have to be international. So, with that being said, thank you so much, Marley, for coming in, for pouring into the community, for educating us on why offshoring is so essential. We appreciate you and we welcome you back into the community so that you can continue to educate us and be a resource for us. So if anyone is interested and didn't get access to the link, please go ahead and respond to the text message and my team will go ahead and send you guys the link. Sign up, okay? So sign up for the waiting list so that you can get the information. And Marley was so generous enough to provide a PDF with what the asset flow chart should look like. So if you want access to that, go ahead and inquire, send us a text and we'll go ahead and send that PDF if you wasn't able to download it on the Zoom call. With that being said, everyone have
Christina,
a night. Yes.
one question. I sent Aya an email. Tell her to look at it because I'm requesting the login credential and the information for the affiliate dashboard and to find out about when my trust is coming in the
Okay.
mail.
All right. Okay, I will let her know.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank
Okay.
you.
All
All
right.
Thank
So
you.
everyone have a good night and God bless you. And thank you
Bye-bye.
so much for attending the masterclass.
Take care, all. Thank you.
Thank
Take care.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nice meeting you.